Very good morning to you. Welcome to the Morning Brief right here on Channels Television. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. As always, the Friday edition. We'll binge through, help you make sense. I'm not sure why we're smiling, but we're all happy. It's Friday.
Well, if you look closely, you'll get a fair idea of the reason. But it's all bright colors here, both in costume and in outlook to the show. Welcome to your perfect morning starter on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
Am I wearing costume?
Full disclosure, the reason I was chuckling particularly was because of the funniest joke that my director dropped in my ears just before we started the show. Maybe one of these days we'll give you a behind-the-scenes feel as to what happens before we get on this show and during the breaks. It's one of the most beautiful moments. So yeah, that's why we're chuckling, or at least I was chuckling. I couldn't help it. So blame my director. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Welcome to the show. And this is just to thank the backroom staff as well. They do brilliant and amazing work to ensure that all that we do comes through crisp and clear.
Now, speaking of brilliant and amazing work, the backroom is definitely making somebody's feet very beautifully visible this morning. But we're not talking about feet. We're also talking about the air. So, Kayode, you want to do us the honors
yes.
of our first
From the ground, let's take off. Let's lift off.
Absolutely.
And it's not really cheery news. I know that yesterday we brought you updates from the meeting which the Aviation and Aerospace Minister, Festus Keyamo, had with airline operators, ministry representatives, that's regulators and other stakeholders. You know, in the build-up to the concern around possible suspension of flights because of the cost of Jet A1 fuel. So there was another meeting yesterday, a follow-up meeting to the previous one. Now, for context, the previous one had the minister saying, well, the president has approved some sort of easing when it comes to the monies owed the government by the airline operators, you know, parking charges and the rest. So for a lot of people, they thought, okay, then we won't have issues with this suspension. At least their costs will reduce while they battle the cost of Jet A1. But then yesterday's meeting seemed to paint yet another possibly grim picture in the coming days, because there was a hint that the airline operators may have to increase fares for the coming days, perhaps a week, to break even, because they are in a very tricky situation. So we'll take a listen to the minister, what he said after that meeting. They will bring you more. And this is Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo.
To the aviation agencies, FAN, NCA, NAMA. So this evening, Mr. President has definitely approved a 30% discount. As of yesterday, we didn't know the number because Mr. President wanted to consider it. But this evening, Mr. President just communicated to us through the Chief of Staff, whilst we were even at the meeting, that he is granting a clear 30% discount to all the airlines for this purpose. Thank you.
So who pays for this discount? Is it the discount coming in form of subsidy? Or?
No, that's not subsidy. The debts they are owing, to the aviation agents, for example, for parking charges for FAN, parking on the aircraft, navigational charges to NAMA, NCA. You know, they have some backlogs to pay.
Yeah.
Mr. President said cut 30% off.
Yeah, so you can help them with this
yes, you can help
process.
Them. So it's a clear 30% Mr. President has granted.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Minister.
We discovered that it's only in Nigeria that we have about 270 or 250% increase, while in other parts of the world, including African countries, about 70%. This is why the President and the Minister called for this meeting, for us to meet with the marketers face-to-face. We've deliberated very hotly today, and they've also shared their own pain points. We've shared our own. We are going to go back and wait for the outcome of their own deliberation with their regulators. And when they do that, we expect that in the next 48 hours, something drastic is done, because no airline in this country will fly in the next 7 days if something is not done. Not because they don't want to fly, but because the pricing, not only of our tickets, but the pricing of the fuel product that we need to fly in the first place, may not be available to us because we don't have the money, borrowed at 35% and 30% to continue to pay only fuel marketers to fly. But the good news, like yesterday, was that the president is listening. And this is very encouraging to us, airline. We are very hopeful. The country should be hopeful because the president, even while we are there, made a call to his honorable minister. And we are grateful to him because we know at the end of the day, there will be a consensus that will, help everyone, both the marketers, the airlines, and the Nigerian flying public. Thank you.
That's the CEO of Air Peace, Mr. Alan Onyema. So unpleasant for the passengers, definitely, but for the operators for whom he's speaking, they say this is a necessary evil in that sense. I mean, just when you thought that the airfares couldn't go any higher, guys, they say it will even go higher than that. Typical of the aviation industry, because they keep going higher and higher.
Well, it's curious because that meeting, which is from Wednesday, was made after, a delegation from the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, airline operators, oil marketers, amongst other stakeholders, engaged with the Minister of Petroleum. And so perhaps they couldn't reach a resolution on possible reduction in price of Jet A1 fuel to airline operators. By the way, the meeting from yesterday as well, where the minister announced that inevitably airline fares will go up because of the challenges that the airline operators are encountering, was also with stakeholders. So apparently there is no middle ground that has been reached yet between airline operators and, of course, oil marketers in the industry. Well, we cannot discountenance the challenges that have necessitated this, being the conflict in the Middle East. But if indeed there is a Shylock element to the operations of airline operators, as spoken to by a stakeholder there, that in other countries, airline ticket fares rise by only 70%, even amid the challenges. What is significantly different with the Nigeria case, where there's a 250% increase? Don't forget that even in these countries, the indices, in terms of human development and other, economic indicators are fairer. If you look at housing, if you look at transportation in other modes, if you look at, inflation, the human indicators are fairer. So why is it significantly different here in Nigeria? So those are the questions that we would ask in probing this recent development. And this is certainly going to be a dip, create a bigger dip in pockets, especially for those who are not necessarily higher up on the social ladder, but have to resort inevitably to traveling via air because of the concern of traveling via road. Guys.
I think the way they are approaching the problem may not actually solve the problem. What is the root of the problem? Crude oil. That is the root. As of 2 days ago, or yesterday, as of this morning, the price of crude oil has actually gone up, so maybe as high as $106. That's for Brent, $106 or $105 per barrel. And it keeps going up and down. In fact, some are projecting that it may stabilize around 90 or 80. I saw something from Goldman Sachs today say if the war ends, we may see some relief. So everybody is forecasting depending on the mood of the Americans, the President of America, Iran, and Israel. So, but we have to prepare and brace up for all of this volatility. Now, why is it that the price of whatever is high now is high? Is because of the knock-on effect. The airlines are complaining that the price for Jet A1 fuel is quite high. And where did they get Jet A1 fuel? From the marketers. Where did the marketers get the fuel from? From the refinery. So I think I commend the minister, as always, for always being on his feet, engaging stakeholders. He never shies away from his responsibility. So the 30% discount is a great one. But I think they should actually have a conversation with the refinery, the biggest one being the Dangote refinery, to see what can be done at the production level, just like what they are doing for the aviation sector. Is it discount? Is it reduction in levy? It is whatever can be done that will have a knock-on effect. This is like solving the problem from the top. Why don't you solve it from the bottom and see how it goes from here? That's my own simple, as the way we look at it. They feel, Jet A1 fuel did not just go up. It went up because of crude oil. So the man who refines the crude oil, or the man who even sells the crude oil to the refiner, can we begin to talk about the premiums that he has to pay? Can we begin to talk about maybe several other things? The expert understand this thing. So when you sort it out from the supplier of the crude oil to the refinery, and the refinery can make adjustments which will affect the marketers will make adjustments which will affect the airlines, and all of us who buy the product. It may not go quite low. It may just go maybe slightly, maybe $100, 100 naira or 200 naira lesser as we speak. Because if you look at the charts between February and March, crude oil price went up by 45%. So there's an argument as to if the core product, which is the very most important component of petroleum product, went up by, let's even assume it's 50%, what should be the consequential increase in terms of percentage from that point on? That is the mathematics we need to calculate. Is it possible that it goes up by 100? Is it possible that it goes up by 200 as being said by these airline operators, or there's something we don't really understand?
But Jeffrey, both petrol and Jet A1 fuel and other products in that mix, they're byproducts of crude oil, right?
Yep.
So what affects petrol will affect Jet A1 fuel if an agreement is reached between the oil marketers, the refineries, and of course those who are in that mix, perhaps the labor unions. And so if there's a subsidy for production at that level, there'll be a knock-on effect, as you have said, and it will impact on the price of Jet A1 fuel all the way down. So it's not just airline operators that are faced with this challenge. Nigerians are also at the bottom end, at the receiving end of the increase in pump price. So there should, in my view, be a larger negotiation delegation. And I believe labor unions are also supposed to be in that mix.
No, but that's why I'm saying that the conversation should move from the airline operators, because their argument is that, okay, for instance, our fare went from, say, 700 and something to 1,000, so it's almost 100%. Because if it goes to 1,000 for this one, they are saying theirs went from 900 to 3,000. They're saying 300%. That is astronomical. It will cause a shock in the sector. I'm saying leave all that debate. Go to the man who sells the crude. Have a conversation with the man who sells the crude and the man who refines the crude. And if we're able to work out a modality, we have the yam and the knife. We can do something, and it may be able to taper the prices a bit down. Then the knock-on effect is just going to be natural. Whether you're buying PMS, you're buying jet fuel, or you're buying kerosene, whatever it is, diesel, all of that is going to have a knock-on effect. So the president is the Minister of Petroleum. This is his job. This is where he's and the reason why I always commend Festus Keyamo is that, the Honorable Minister, is that since all of this happened, have you seen Eneke Lokpobri speak as often as he should speak, or Ekperikpe, or that of gas? Have you seen them speak? These are the people that the president is busy, and perhaps they have a reason for domiciling the ministry under him. But these are his foot soldiers, both gas and oil. What are they saying? I've not heard. Maybe I've not seen.
So if petrol moves from 750 naira per litre all the way to 1,245, 300 naira per litre, depending on where you are, and Jet A1 fuel moves from below 1,000 naira to 3,000 naira per litre, the margin is rather wide. So why has Jet A1 fuel become that expensive?
I don't have that answer, but I'm sure there is an explanation to it. Why it will, I don't think I have that answer, but I'm sure there's an explanation if you look at how these things are distillated and refined.
Well, I'm not really expecting much because we wanted them to tinker around the price of petrol. Nothing has happened. So is it Jet A1 that they see? Oh, it's elites that fly. They should be able to bear the cost, even though they are trying to give a 30% reduction in whatever is payable to the government. I don't see this really moving the needle as much. The prices will go up, as they have said, if Jet A1 doesn't come down. But while we pay attention to what's happening in the aviation sector, at least the flight should not stop. Okay, the flight should not stop. It's very expensive. It might be expensive if they're not creative enough. We have to speak to politics, and we've seen a lot of meetings here and there. But this latest meeting is particularly curious, and it's between the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, and Mr. Peter Obi of the Labour Party. So, not the Labour Party, I'm used to that, of the ADC, the coalition. Well, he was Labour Party presidential candidate in the 2023 election. So Mr. Peter Obi visited the governor of Bauchi State, Mr. Bala Mohammed, at Ramad House in Bauchi. And you know, when the governor of Bauchi State was speaking, he described himself as a freelance politician. Yes. Now, what does that mean? Well, you probably won't be surprised, particularly because politics in Nigeria has now taken on different dimensions. There's anti-party politics, party activities happening openly. There is, I belong to this party, but I'm supporting this other party. There's defection here and there. So the latest is this term, freelance politician. So I know about free agents when it comes to footballers or their managers. It means that, well, you may belong to one team, but you are open to moving to another team, or you don't even have any team at all, and you're open to just going wherever it is. But I don't know, guys. Where exactly would we get, I would say, enough is enough? Right, let us have values. Let us have strong values that we stand for. But for the politicians, it's all well and good. As far as you have your support base and I can tap into it, that is great. So for Mr. Peter Obi, the ADC, this is great if they are able to harness whatever political value that he has.
I think perception is quite critical. Perhaps is why they are doing their best to get in Bala Mohammed, who is also trying to survive politically. He's trying to maybe get to the Senate, also trying to, you know, find out who is going to be successor, because it's important to these governors, and everything in between that is critical, because as we speak, there is no ADC governor. Even the Labour Party still has a governor. So these are times for horse trading, you know, politicking. He has a right to say what he wants to say. He's not running for a second term. What he's looking for now is life after being a governor. What will his political future look like? So he can't gamble it. He wants to be sure that whoever is aligning with has a chance of winning. And then if the person wins, he also has a seat on the table in that victory. So there's no crime in what he's doing. In terms of how politics in Nigeria is played, we're tired of talking about them crisscrossing and then carpet crossing. It's a culture here. So we've accepted it the way it is for now until we mature out of this. It's not just, that's not just the only party that this thing is happening to. Even the APC itself, there are some things going on that is causing friction within the party. I understand some of the senators wanted some level of, you know, assurance from the president for them to return to the Senate. You know what happened in the last election? A lot of them did not come back because of the, you know, Labour Party effects and the OB effects. So this time, now that there's a bit, maybe solid ground for them to some extent, they want some guarantees. But you understand the president may be telling them, the governors control the structure. You speak with your governors, because the president wants his re-election assured. So I can tell you, for a state like Delta State, there's going to be issues. Ifeanyi Okowa is coming back, wants to come back to the Senate from Delta North. Ned Nwoko wants to come back. Dafinoni wants to come back from Central. Former DSP, Omar Agege, wants to come back as well. We can go on and on across several states where some of this back and forth are actually happening. In fact, some governors have nominated their successor, but the stakeholders in the state are saying, no, that's not going to happen. We didn't consult us like Nasarawa. So it's not Uhuru yet, even for the APC. So there's nothing unnatural. You know what I'm waiting for, guys? When they are done with all this thing, I'm waiting for May 30th, by the grace of God. When they are, at that time, we're not going to be confused of who is where. We're just going to deal with the persons that have been eventually, you know, nominated by the parties.
Jeffrey, all of those dynamics that you have analyzed, they would definitely play out not just in Bauchi, not just in Delta, but, you know, across many states of the Federation. And the simple reason being the shock element of the 2023 election, where we didn't have one candidate that usually delivered 12 million votes. But, you know, we now saw that the votes were distributed between the candidate of the APC, now current president, the candidate of the PDP, and the new kid on the block, or if you like, the sensation from the 2023 election, and the candidate of the LP at that time, Mr. Peter Obi, who is now in the ADC. Now, Mr. Bala Mohammed is crucial in all of this because Bauchi delivered, I think, 426,000 votes to the PDP in the 2023 presidential election. And so he appears to be a beautiful bride at this point in time. But who would he work with? And that is perhaps why it's been a difficult decision for him to make. This is not the first time the ADC have met with Governor Bala Mohammed. Months before now, or weeks before now, if you like, Mr. Peter Obi led an ADC delegation to meet with him. And right after, we saw a delegation from the APC also meeting with Mr. Bala Mohammed. And don't forget that after that first meeting with the ADC, Mr. Mohammed had announced that, look, conclusions have been made, and before the end of that week we would see, a definite decision that would be made. But that decision didn't come through because the APC now then met with Mr. Bala Mohammed. So which way would he go? And we've also been reminded, by Mr. Nyesom Wike that he didn't want to work with Alhaji Atiku Abubakar at that time in 2023, who is now one of the leaders of the ADC coalition. So it would be interesting who is able to succeed to pay the bride price for this beautiful bride in Bauchi State amongst the political actors. But of course, the coming days would be very interesting as far as politicking is concerned. But we have the next bit already on standby, Kadi.
Oh, yes. So time will tell. We'll see who the bride is. Is it the people that will vote or the politicians who are the leaders? I will take a quick break now, and when we return, the front pages are up for you with Mr. Dayo Akintobi. Stay with us.
And Mr. Dayo Akintobi, dependable public affairs analyst, and of course, our own colleague here, our journalist, joins us now for the newspaper review segment. Thank God it's Friday, Mr. Akintobi, and you look very TGIF-ish.
Thank you. I'm more of a thank God it's Monday kind of person.
Yeah, for both ways it happens. Let's begin with this Nigeria. And, this was high on our minds when it came through yesterday. $516 million. Senate okays Tinubu's request. Opposition CSOs kick. Split over development gains and debt risks. And we've had to do a count of the loans that have been secured since 2023 under this administration. Is it concerning for you?
Yes, it is a bit concerning because the debt exposure of the country seems to be rising to a level that might not be sustainable. And this was probably part of what cost the immediate past Minister of Finance's job, because he actually spoke out recently against continued borrowings. And when you look at this new loan of $516 million, which is about 600-700 billion naira. It's such an astronomical figure that it sends shivers down the spine of the average Nigerian to think about the fact that we're further encumbering our future. And you look and you ask that, what exactly is the purpose of the loan to begin with? You do a cost-benefit analysis. Without a doubt, infrastructural renewal and infrastructural development is a good thing in the progress of any nation. But you have to basically weigh the cost versus the benefit that is about to come out. Now, you look at the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road. We took a loan for that, which we still owe. We're still kind of burdened under the yoke of the financial commitment of that particular project. That's not to say benefits won't come with it. I mean, it'll open up several states, it'll create commerce, ease of transportation. There are benefits to the road, but do the benefits outweigh the encumbrance in terms of the yoke of the indebtedness? So we're now taking on another big burden of this Lagos to Sokoto, Badagry to Sokoto road, which I understand was actually initiated as far back as the Shagari regime. But it was conceptualized then. but never really fully funded. I mean, I think I've been on parts of the road from around Agbara to Badagry where you can see a bit of a backbone, but it's never really received the kind of funding to make it happen all the way through and open up 6 or 7 states. So in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with building a road that opens up the country because it leads to economic activity, which has a knock-on effect of development, improving quality of lives for those along the corridor, improving transportation. But the question then becomes, in light of the current debt levels that the country has already undertaken, is it a worthwhile expenditure to borrow money to build a road? Let me first give you this idea that, well, this opinion of mine is that building a road is not something that any government should crow about, because by the very definition of government, these are the basic things, the low-hanging fruits that any government should do to begin with and not even beat its chest about it. We shouldn't hear about them building roads because by very definition of government, these are some of the most basic things they should provide. So I don't think we should be going into the kind of situation that could cause an existential crisis in the future simply because we want to open up part of the country. I would prefer to see 516 million go into things that will have direct impact on the quality of lives of Nigerians today. Say, for example, channel that money towards increasing the minimum wage, channel that money towards creating greater employment, perhaps fixing electricity in such a way that industries and manufacturing concerns can expand capacity, employ people who will now be able to earn a salary, be able to feed their families, send their children to school, pay their medical bills. A road is a good thing, but it's a long-term benefit. Nigeria is in the kind of a situation now where we need immediate succor. So if we have $516 million, even if we don't have it in pocket, if somebody's willing to give it to us, I think there are greater priorities that should be addressed as opposed to building a road.
And I was going to ask, you just, took that lead, but perhaps you could also expand on it a bit more. Isn't it curious that the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, the Sokoto-Badagry Road gets priority funding amid the current funding crunch, which in fact a senator of the Federal Republic spoke to yesterday on our program when he said that even the National Assembly is also taking the heat in the delay of release of constituency funds, and we're seeing other critical ministries not getting funding. What does this say about the priorities of the administration?
Well, absolutely. That opens the government up to criticism and suspicion that there might be an agenda here. For example, some of the rumors we have heard is that it's the same company that's building the Lagos-Calabar superhighway that's also been awarded the Badagry-Sokoto superhighway as well, and that the promoters of that construction company have close ties to the highest levels of the administration. So they're receiving preferential treatment, basically, because their own needs are being addressed before. Yeah, I mean, here we have contractors protesting at the Ministry of Finance with placards that they've not been paid for work they've already done, which for all intents and purposes the funds have already been allocated for. They've not been paid from monies that have already been appropriated. And now here we have other projects receiving funding from money that is being borrowed. So it makes it look like there's an agenda at play in terms of the prioritization of the government. Is it that those who are close to the administration receive preferential treatment to the detriment of Nigerian citizens in general? If that's the case, then I suppose we will find out at the polls whether that pleases Nigerians or not, because I think the current political situation is one where Nigerians are forcing themselves to be politically conscious because they've come to recognize the nexus between politics and our quality of life. So when we see these things happening that are not to the benefit of the average Nigerian, we speak out now. We speak out through protests, but I also look forward to us speaking out through our vote at the polls in 2027.
I think you're referring to High-Tech Construction Limited,
Absolutely.
Which is owned by the Shagori Group.
Absolutely.
Which is also responsible, and it was flagged up 2024, so it was in the open. High-Tech will be handling this same
Absolutely.
as the coastal road as well. So. important point to make. Perhaps we'll go to the next paper, and it's going to be the Vanguard newspaper. The Vanguard newspaper has celebration today, so you'll understand why the front page of the Vanguard newspaper has, images of the personality of the year. But you see, of course, the glitz glamours Vanguard awardees step forth today. But right beside, you see some of those major stories. Tinubu writes Senate seeks approval, which we have talked about. But then you see the very present challenge of insecurity staring us in the face yet again. 20 killed in fresh Borno Plateau attacks. It's a page 7 read. And, the Inspector General of Police visited one of the police colleges, I think in Nasarawa, yesterday. And you could see the trainings that the police officers go through. All of the, aiming, marksmanship, the usual stuff, climbing a rope, and you're like, they're ready to really combat terrorism when they get out. But what do we see? It's not even the police primarily combating terrorism. It's the military. So there's a major disconnect. And I wonder for you, if you've thought about it, you've thought about all of the solutions, is there anything still missing that we have not talked about in fixing this challenge of persistent insecurity?
Well, I want to tell you that it's not for a lack of training, because the training of the police and the armed forces is really rigorous. Like you said, you watched it, you saw it. It's not that they're not well trained, and it's not that they're not well equipped either, because we've poured a lot of money into equipping the police and the armed forces. So I suspect that part of it is a lack of motivation. Perhaps morale is low. First of all, they are seeing their commanding officers being eliminated. That goes to show you the state of affairs in this war. Because any conflict you look at anywhere around the world, by the time a brigadier general gets killed in the theater of war, that shows the fact that our defenses are porous. It's unheard of for commanding officers to actually be gunned down in the process. Yes, they lead their forces, but by the time they can get to the commanding officer, the enemy, it means that our strategy is completely wrong. I think there are two things that we're not focusing on. Number one is following the money. And I'm glad that that list of terrorism sponsors was released a couple of weeks ago. That's a good start. I was surprised I didn't really see any recognizable names beyond IPOB. I thought we'd see some real major, publicly exposed, politically exposed names, because clearly, apart from the fact that it's people with deep pockets, it's probably also people with political connections in the country. I think it's important to follow the money. Secondly, I think it's also important to boost the morale of the troops, and there are various ways to do that, including improving their emoluments, hazard pay, things like an overall rejig of the strategy. I mean, we've heard all these new terms, kinetic, non-kinetic approaches, and in spite of all of the terminology, we're not seeing it being effective. We've seen people try, we've seen aspects of the administration try rehabilitation. We saw the graduation of 744 the other day. They've done de-radicalization, rehabilitation. That doesn't seem to work, because in spite of the fact that repentant, quote unquote, which I don't believe they're repentant anyway, laying down their arms and coming forward and saying, we've had a change of heart. It hasn't reduced the incidence of insecurity. The more lay down their arms, the more people are getting killed, and the worse the war is getting. So it looks like the entire strategy hasn't hit the nail on the head in terms of the solution yet. Both kinetic and non-kinetic approaches don't seem to be reducing the scourge. So let's look at encouraging our military more. Let's pursue the financiers of the insurgency, because they're so well equipped. Their logistics are second to none. Their weaponry is, as modern as it gets, and all these things cost money. So perhaps we should look in a different direction.
Let's go to the Guardian newspaper. It's leading with politics. The Guardian is leading with politics, and Mr. Kinzobe, it's an interesting one, because this is a problem that is happening in the APC, it's happening across all the parties. they're manifesting differently. Some are able to manage their issues more than the others. How caucus, consensus candidacy erode internal democracy in parties. So people are screaming about the politics of imposition. Looks like the men with the war chest, the men with power, the men with influence are now deciding who will be what. For instance, the River State we always talk about, nobody's sure what's going on. The governor, for instance, is not sure of his future. Their names being touted around. If you go to Delta, you can see issues like across board. I mean, both in the APC, PDP, the embattled ADC, there are issues. What do you make of this? This is what has led most of them to court, and it looks like we're not coming out of it anytime soon.
You know, the Electoral Act, this was exactly what it was designed to solve. But it seems to have exacerbated, it's done the opposite. When the Electoral Act recommended consensus and direct primaries, the whole idea of taking indirect primaries out was to curb the corruption associated with it, because, if it's indirect and it's just the delegates, they were easy to bribe. Their loyalty was easy to buy because they're a limited number. So the aspirants with deep pockets were able to corner the delegates relatively easily. So the Electoral Act said, let's eliminate indirect, because it makes it a little more cumbersome if you have to get the vote of every single member of the party, because with direct primaries it's the whole party that's voting. And so it's mind-boggling to think that any one politician can settle every single member of the party and win their loyalty and buy their votes. So that was the whole idea when the Electoral Act came into being in 2026. However, it now said consensus. I think that consensus has been misapprehended. What the Electoral Act prescribes for consensus is that the aspirants, all the aspirants, must agree to step down. Written. They must agree to step down in favor of one person.
They will purchase the form?
Yes, purchase the form. That's why they are an aspirant.
Yes.
No, they've purchased the form. They've actually been screened and passed.
Yeah.
Then when it comes to the moment of actually voting or being selected, they now consciously and publicly written step down in favor of a particular person. Well, guess what's happening? That tenet is now being construed to mean that the party elders are the ones now choosing the consensus candidates. They've taken it out of the hands of the other aspirants.
It's a out of court settlement.
Which court?
It's out of
court of
contest.
Yeah. So of course, what has happened is that the other aspirants are aggrieved. They say, we didn't get a chance. The whole thing, I'm supposed to write and agree to step down. You remember the APC convention of 2023 when there were so many people looking for the presidential ticket, and they all came up to the microphone one by one. I remember Kayode Fayemi.
The first was Godswill Akpabio.
Yeah, absolutely. And they all came up to the microphone.
And today, Senate President.
Well,
the deal.
Well, there's rewards for complicity, I guess. So I remember that. That's the kind of idea that the Electoral Act had, was that you consciously and publicly renounce your candidacy. But in this case, it even says, it not just come to microphone and say, sign. But they're not even getting the chance to even be screened. In some cases, they can't even buy the form, because already, you see in the whole of the Southwest, the candidates have already been announced for governorship. And the other aspirants never got a chance to even express.
State, you're even talking about let's Ogun here.
Ogun State, yeah.
Ogun State, the party has decided one way.
And I guess that's why some of the other contenders didn't, proceed to declare their intention to run. For instance, there were reports that the Minister of Communication was also interested in the governorship race.
You're even talking about governorship, even the Ogun East, where Benga Daniel is the sitting senator.
And the current governor.
Is interested. In fact, if you go to that big poster now, as you drive towards Berger, you see the president, you see Benga Daniel, then you see Yayi. So Benga Daniel, they were to have some kind of an endorsement meeting one morning. I don't know whether they didn't know that Benga was in town.
He was locked out of the meeting.
He couldn't attend the meeting.
No.
And he said whatever is happening inside there is null and void. That's the sitting senator who was not allowed to be part of the endorsement of the governor.
Yes, and that meeting came out with a position, essentially ratifying the outgoing governor as
candidate.
The consensus candidates. So that's why I'm saying they made nonsense of the Electoral Act, and it's affecting every single party.
I know when it happens, you pay for it naturally.
Absolutely.
You pay for it.
Yes, without a doubt.
Interesting days are ahead. There's another interesting story on the front page of New Telegraph. I wonder if we have 60 seconds for that. Very quickly, governors ready for state police, present administrative financing framework. And we have here, seek outstanding fiscal issues resolution, want measures to restore confidence in fiscal management. Are you optimistic about this, or is it just on paper?
Well, they met with the new Minister of Finance and coordinating Minister of the Economy, and they believe that now that there's new blood in that ministry, perhaps things will start moving a bit faster. And yes, you know, the President himself has spoken in favor of state police, and he said we're going to make it happen, and he's got the governors on board. The governors also see it as to their benefit, because they're tired of this insecurity, and they don't have any real ability to get out there and do anything about it on their own. So it looks like the movement for state police is gathering momentum, and there's this framework that the governors have come up with, because you know there are a lot of issues to get this done. Of course, there's got to be an enabling law. Then there's issues of how do they fund it, how do they train the police, how do they, you know, there's so much procedure and protocol to take care of that they've had to first come up with preliminary studies, research, recommendations from experts, and now they've come up with a common position that they submitted to the federal government and said, okay, this is how we think we can get it done, and we need your backing for it. So it's a good beginning. I think we've tried everything about insecurity, and it hasn't worked so far. So any new measure we can take, including state police, which basically decentralizes command and control, devolves it to the state level, meaning policing will be more local. There's so much to be said for local policing in terms of the advantages. We don't need to rehash them, since you said I only have 60 seconds, and I sometimes do get carried away as a garrulous person. I said I was going to tell you guys something. I got a comment the other day that said, you're starting to sound like Honorable Patrick Obiago. So I said, from today I'm going to speak in everyday man's language. No more big English here on this program.
No more mishmash.
No more jiggly-pokery.
Thank you.
So that my identity remains quite distinct from his own.
But sometimes, you know, that warms our heart and brightens up the atmosphere. So don't eliminate, you know, those grammatical.
All right.
How do I say it now? Help me, Mr. Adikitabi.
Neologisms.
Yes. Mr. Adikitabi is a journalist and public affairs analyst who has come through on the newspaper review segment. Thank you so much.
My pleasure always. Have a lovely weekend, Nigeria.
Indeed, and you too. And so we'll take a moment now. When we return, it will be time to explore a very important conversation: the state of our schools and the welfare of our teachers in the Federal Capital Territory. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. So let's talk about governance and shift away from politics. And that has to do with what's playing out in the FCT. I'm sure you remember when they embarked on the strike. They are embarking on that strike again. But I understand the Honorable Minister of the FCT had met them, I think, hours ago. But let's talk to the Secretary of the National Union of Teachers, AMAC, that's Abuja Municipal Area Council, Mr. Persindam. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Ndam, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you.
There are two things I would like you to do for our audience, for Nigerians, to understand where you're coming from. First, what were these demands that the FCT teachers are asking for? Has there anyone been met or not at all? And we understand that the minister had met with the union yesterday. So maybe you start with the last and confirm whether that meeting happened or not.
It's all right. That's true. The Minister of the FCT, Honorable Chief Barrister Wike, had the opportunity to meet with the union leaders yesterday, precisely Thursday, in his residence in the Life Camp here in Abuja. So the meeting actually took place.
Okay, so let's go back to the very first questions. First question, what are these demands that are met? How many are they? I want you to say it, besides what I know. How many are these demands? Has any been met? What are those ones that have not been met that has necessitated this strike?
Let me answer you from the last phrase, whether they've been met or not. They haven't been met. And these demands, as you demand to know, or as you wanted to know, are many. But before I could give you, let me quickly let you know that the demands has to do with two sections of the schools. We have the primary schools and we have the secondary schools. The primary schools are constitutionally supposed to be under the purview of the local government or area councils, as the case may be here in the FCT. Now, the first issue that led to the union going on strike has to do with the primary schools. Before today or before now, the primary schools have been owed so many arrears, one of which is the issue that has to do with their annual increment arrears. You know, in the school sector or in the civil service pattern, every year, 1st January of every year is supposed to serve as an effective little increment on your normal salary income. So that at the primary school level has not been taken good care of, sort of. Most times the year comes in, no increment is made until it goes for over months before they will want to pay in arrears. And that has accumulated so much that has led to a problem to the teachers in the primary school section. So another thing that has to be done with and has to do with the primary school teachers is the case of a promotion arrears. Teachers were promoted in the primary school and the implementation was not made immediately, which led to also accumulating some arrears of payment. Let me give you an instance. Sometimes 2015, teachers were promoted in the primary school. 2016, 2017, 2018, they only implemented the promotion, not at the exact point of the promotion. It was lingered before the implementation. And so by that, it was supposed to be paid along with the arrears that was. If you were supposed to start benefiting from a promotion, a financial effect from January 2026, for instance, and it was not done until May, June, it means the government or your employer is owing you about 3 months or 4 months thereabout. So they are expected to have paid that money. That was not done. And you should know it's not an individual thing. It's a number of teachers who were qualified. So that led to the promotion arrears that we're talking about in the primary schools. So between 2015 and 2018, down to 2020, that money was not paid. But the union took it up, the union leaders now took it up upon themselves to follow the employer and ask to know why. At a point, they agreed they will pay this money. Eventually, it was not paid. The union kept going on to negotiations with the employers, fine-tuning ways of seeing how these arrears could be paid. That was not done. Some agreements were reached. Templates of payment to ease the work or the financial burden on the government was also agreed upon with the union leaders. Along the line, some area councils agreed, started paying. Some defaulted along the line. So that sparked up the anger, so to say, the dissatisfaction of the union and the teachers. That is the second thing there. Another thing is, you are aware that when the government of President Tinubu came on board, he removed fuel subsidy. And in the struggle to see how civil servants could be carried along in these pains of the transportation issue, NLC had an interface with the president. And the president graciously agreed to kind of alleviate some challenges of transportation to civil servants. And so he said, every civil servant should be paid the sum of 35,000 naira wage allowance for a period of 6 months. That the area council didn't implement to the primary school teachers. So that is one of the issues we are really battling with the area council at the primary section. Another thing is the peculiar allowance, which was introduced by the former administration of late President Muhammadu Buhari of blessed memory. 70,000 precisely was paid for civil servants. that was tagged peculiar allowance. That peculiar allowance was not paid by the area council as well to teachers. Along the line, negotiations upon negotiations led to them implementing part of this, but the arrears kept accumulating as usual. So it became a problem to the leaders of the union, and the teachers were like getting more demoralized instead of being motivated, instead of being encouraged to do what they really made up their mind for. So these are some of the things. We also have this one we call 25% and 35% respectively that the government brought in to also alleviate challenges of the civil servant. And it was discussed with the area council management, which was also supposed to be paid to the primary school teachers. That also has not been done. Agreements have been reached. Then the arrears of the national minimum wage of the 2019. When it was implemented, it was not paid. All these things put together, and others I cannot just tell you.
All right, Mr. Ndam.
The FCT minister had to intervene about 2-3 times now, I should think so, and directed that this money be paid, even release some funds to support the FCT area council chairman to see how they can address these challenges to the primary school teachers.
Right.
But all the same, it didn't yield any much result, so to say. Now, this present strike that teachers went on about a week today, it was from Mondays precisely, the issue was brought on table. At the state level of the FCT NUT, the leaders of the union took a decision and wrote an ultimatum to the government, copying the FCT, that if nothing is done on this, teachers may down tool. And that ultimatum was since March this 2026. There was no response. No response from neither the area council nor the FCT.
So, Mr. Ndam, if I can come in quickly. So you're saying that primarily this is an issue with the area councils, not the FCT administration, nor the federal government. Is that what you're saying?
To be very precise, it's not supposed to be the FCT government. That is on the part of the primary school.
Because we know that some of the secondary school teachers said that, well, they're not a part of this strike.
No, any secondary school teacher that is telling you he or she is not part of this strike is not giving you the right information. Let me tell you quickly that why secondary schools are involved is because secondary school teachers who were qualified for promotion into the next ranks or levels of their profession, they were asked to write exams. A CBT exam was conducted November 2025 by the FCT. Secondary school teachers are under the purview of the FCT. At the expiration of that exams or at the conclusion of that exams, teachers passed the promotion. But as we speak, so many teachers were not given the promotion result. So many were denied. And when the union cared to know why, the Civil Service Commission and head of service of the FCT said they were releasing promotion based on vacancy. And to us in the FCT, we said it is alien. There has never been any administration that has gone to tell teachers that we will promote you only when there is vacancy. How can you, for instance, conduct an exams for over 800 teachers and you release only 96? Where is it done? And what is the reason for that? Which vacancy do you think a classroom teacher is looking for? A classroom teacher who is always going to teach, go back to his normal activities. He cares for students, or in this case, he cares for his students. Deliver his lessons and go away. And here you are saying there should be vacancy. And teacher said, no, we are not interested in you giving us vacancy to go and head some agencies. To promote us to the level we are supposed to, as far as we are eligible. If I am qualified to, or I am eligible to go to the next level of a deputy director, for instance, level 16, and then you tell me that there is no vacancy for me to be promoted to a level 16, and I said, no, allow me to remain in the classroom. I can maintain my level 16, just pay me the remuneration while I deliver my lessons.
Even those secondary schools in the FCT are directly under the FCT administration, they should really be part of this industrial action because of the promotion demand.
Because of the promotion exercise.
Because of the promotion exercise.
Precisely because of the promotion exercise.
So administratively, when you say that primary schools are under the local area councils, administratively, where do you think the problem is coming from in the delay of payment and addressing of other concerns? Is it also coming from the Federal Capital Territory Authority, which should authorize payment?
Well, I won't tell you that it's coming from excuse me, from FCT. But I will tell you, I am not a management of the FCT, neither a management staff of the LEA or the area council. But what we know is area council is supposed to pay, but they kept saying they do not have the needed funds. And we said, no, you have to source for it. We are seeing what you are doing to other politicians. Why can't you do same to these teachers who are models of the societies, who are the brain box of these, little children that we are trying to prepare for tomorrow? Each time you say children are the future of tomorrow, who trains them? The upbringing of these children is solidly under the purview of the primary school teachers. So area council are supposed to source for the fund, wherever they can get it from. So if we don't know, but we know they have allocation.
They have allocation. Is the allocation paid to them, to their account, directly from the federal government, or do they receive it from the Federal Capital Territory Authority that holds their funds in trust, as we see in other states of the federation?
The arrangement of the FCT area council somehow is tactically different from other states. The area council has what they call Joint Action Committee, JAC. That JAC has to do with all the area councils meeting together before they share the allocation that is given to them. And I am thinking that the allocation comes directly into the JAC account.
So the Federal Capital Territory Authority does not hold their funds in trust before it gets to them. Can you say that categorically?
They have not told us.
Or
they haven't told us. The
area council chairman haven't
told us that. No, we don't have that information.
But what is the
FCT is holding their allocation or not?
What is the FCT minister saying about this?
The FCT minister actually expressed his displeasure. He wasn't happy that the schools are not in session. And at that meeting precisely, he was able to say that he will intervene, that he cannot sit down and see his children suffering. He will ensure that area council chairman pays the requisite allowances or arrears of these primary school teachers. The area council chairman pay these teachers' demands because they are genuine, they are objective issues. So the FCT minister said they should look for a way, and at that meeting he was able to tell them there are ways of raising funds. For him, he can intervene. His role as the father is to play the role of intervention and not a right. And because the FCT primary schools are directly under him, the people who say FCT are not paying, schools are not in session in FCT, and it's him, they will know. So he was not happy with it. And so he directed the area council chairman to do all they can to pay. And at that meeting, he was able to say that if they can't do anything, of course he has been intervening, he will intervene.
All right, so help us understand the total number of teachers in question here, and cumulatively, what is the sum that is supposed to be released to the area councils to begin disbursement?
Okay, talking about the total number of teachers that are supposed to benefit for this arrears I'm talking about, I won't be precise here. But for the amount that is accumulated for it to be released, it's about 53 billion naira.
Okay, so in concluding and in closing, as we begin to wind down, is there anything to the effect that this will be resolved anytime soon from the feelers that you're getting from the area councils, which are responsible for the local government? Because the government these days, they are one of their bragging rights, or one of the things they put out. As a matter of fact, the last March FAC, there was a disbursement of over 2 trillion naira to all the federation, state, federal, and the local government. So in terms of money they should have enough money to be able to do basics like paying salary, recurrent expenditure. So what are they saying at the moment? Are there promises being made? Are there assurances being given so that we can know what to hold on to?
Yes, there are assurances. But you see, these area council chairmen are politicians. In time past, they have made certain promises like that, and they fail, which has led us to where we are today. But this current one, they have given us their words that they will act as fast as possible to alleviate the continuing of this strike. So we are thinking that they will act based on their promises. And the minister also said he will not sleep over the matter. We are thinking that if all things go the way it was supposed to be, and from the feelers of the discussions yesterday, I should think that between now and the weekend, anything positive that comes from the government, the union will sit back with its leaders and take their decision and get it published to the society to know what the position is. But as I sit here, I won't tell you whether the union is calling off the strike today or tomorrow, because I'm not the spokesperson of the union. I'm only speaking in my capacity as the area council of the AMAC, precisely a secretary, who is preview to all the discussions.
All right. Person down is the Secretary NUT AMAC, that's Abuja Municipal Area Council. Thank you for coming on the program.
Area Council, yeah. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, when we come back after this break, we're going to talk about borrowings. The government has the Senate has actually approved over $500 million new borrowing by the federal government in a letter written by the President to the Senate. And there's been a lot of furore, argument, anger. Why is this government borrowing? We're going to break all of that down today with the experts. Join us again.
Olusegun Onigbide is co-founder and CEO of Budget and joins us virtually on the program today. And good morning. Thank you for joining us on the program. Well, the Nigerian Senate has just looked through and approved a borrowing of $516 million, which is going to be, of course, led by Deutsche Bank, partial risk guarantee from the Islamic Corporation for the insurance of investment and export credit. In fact, the Nigerian government says, why not just fold in our arms? We're going to give you $265 billion in this whole process for land acquisition related costs. And the Senate president said something yesterday. He says, well, it is better to borrow for infrastructure, so that when it's time to pay back, the infrastructure can pay back. And this has raised concerns. We've heard the opposition ADC speak about this, saying the government is going on binge borrowing in that sense. The government has said, well, look at the interest rate. It's not very high, and it's not even what you've seen in the past. This is different. And we'll talk about the project, what the project is for, the Sokoto-Badagry Superhighway, the bidding process, who's going to handle it. But let's talk about the loans first. What do you see when you look at this latest loan request and approval?
Thanks so much, Kayode. I think we are walking into uncharted territories in a very dangerous environment with this continuous external debt that we are taking. And I guess also there is no significant scrutiny by the National Assembly on what exactly these funds are meant to use for, or even the time. I mean, the last one before this, they didn't even take 22 hours for you sign off on a certain loan. Either is what the $5 billion is from the Abu Dhabi bank, or this one came from the Deutsche Bank. So I'm basically worried about the level of scrutiny. In previous times, this loan should have been returned to the House Committee, maybe on foreign loans and debt, or on finance and appropriation, so have a proper scrutiny of the entire loan. But this kind of thing that the president sent a letter, the Senate president reads the letter, puts it to vote, and gets approval. I'm worried about the level of scrutiny and interrogation these loans are getting. That's the first point. The second thing is also to look at how did we arrive here. I mean, the previous government under President Muhammadu Buhari, took a lot of debt in a very short time. We took our external debt, but we raised it by over $20 billion. We took our domestic debt by another about 30 trillion naira, and at the end of the day, the current government is bearing the brunt of that debt, because at the end of the day, no matter what the interest rate, no matter the moratorium, at one point in time you would have to pay back, and you will have to pay back with future revenue. So it's even a poorly taking loan is even more dangerous than wasting public revenues, because you are literally hemorrhaging revenues that would come in the future at the end of the day. So my own is, the first worry is the scrutiny that, in terms of the processes that the Senate has applied to this loan request. Before we even look at the propriety of the loan request, I mean, we're doing a Sokoto Badagry road, and I think a couple of questions have come in. There's this instantaneous feeling that we have to do what we call legacy project, per se, but I'm worried about the fact that there's so many places to put legacy projects in. We have so many roads that are still uncompleted. I'm from Ogbomoso, so I go, that road is still not done. If I'm part of the Badon or your Ogbomoso Ilorin road, part was done, it's gone bad again. The part that connects Ogbomoso to Ilorin is still unfinished. So there's so many roads across the federation that we could target and focus heavily on, and this new, taking on this big pipe project. And we are also doing it in a very wrong way. There were concerns around the coastal road, around the propriety of it, around the fact that the routes that process was not subject to competitive bidding, was not subject to a clear procurement process, and we are doing the same thing with this Badagry road. It's unfortunate. To take a loan when procurement processes are not effective, and the National Assembly that is supposed to be the the guardrail and the backstop to all of this is also not standing to its responsibility. So I guess that's my own biggest problem. The executive can propose anything. The framers of the constitutions that said that the National Assembly should approve this funding, they are wise in their own ways, because they understand that the executive can even choose to be exuberant, but the National Assembly should act as the buffer on all of these issues.
So you said that a poorly taken loan is even worse than wasting public resources or public funds. So for you, is this a poorly taken loan? And can we speak to the others that were previously taken, or at least sent to the Senate by this government? Were they poorly taken as well, in your opinion?
You have to look at when you take external debt that way, you have to think through it clearly, because and I'll give you an example. The previous government, we took almost $15 billion of Euro bonds, in different times under the Buhari administration. And you will look back that has increased our external debt significantly. And the question you're going to ask is, to what end? What did those loans, what did they achieve? If you're trying to build a road, maybe a transnational or maybe a transnational road, and you're building something within the country, why must it be an external debt? Why are we taking an external debt to build a road? I did some engineering before, and I'm asking myself, what do I need? What materials do I need to construct that road? I need that requires an external component? I'm just curious, because you're possibly going to need cement. You're going to source that internally. You're going to need gravel. You can source that internally. Maybe if the steel rods, maybe you need to bring that out of the country. Is that reason why we need to take this continuous loans? Either we're doing a coastal road or we're doing this Badagry road. I worry much more the fact that there's this for saying we want to have legacy projects, and we want to do this legacy project. And another problem is why some of these loans are even channeled towards one single entity. The high-tech construction company, called led by the Gilbert Chaguri, and that's been in the news. And there's continuous worry about capture maybe of public resources and using that to funnel that into a single entity without any competitive bidding. And those are the questions, because even if it's properly taken, even if it's a loan for a worthy cause, if the process is wrong, obviously the outcome cannot just be right. And this is where the National Assembly, in my own view, should have put more scrutiny on these loans, because that's what their prop job is. A whole of this devaluation we had, these ways and means we had, the fact that we took loans, Euro bonds, we're taking loans to fuel subsidy in the past. Even the executive took some reckless decisions. The National Assembly also had the same, they were also responsible for some of these decisions, because they were supposed to be the accountability partner in all of this. And that's my own bigger worry. The National Assembly is not stepping up into its role on this.
All right, let's walk back a bit. And you've raised the concern. In fact, when I was processing all of this, as though you read my mind, I told myself, we will put a lot of the blame on the National Assembly because they have a responsibility of the purse. The president can present anything or whatever he chooses to present. It is for them to scrutinize and say yes or nay. But let's walk back a bit to revenue issues because we need to borrow, which is part of our appropriation bill, because maybe there are shortfalls. And even under the time of Muhammadu Buhari, the minister then had maintained that we have a revenue problem. But this government has said creation, with the tax, revenue is coming, we're seeing the fact distribution, but they are still borrowing. So let's use a scenario to explain to Nigerians, because sometimes Nigerians get confused that if you're making so much money as you say, why are you still borrowing there? You, who is the expert, to be able to clear that, because last year, I think in September, the president in one of his outings made this remark and said, as at August 2025, we had met our target for the year. I don't know whether he was talking about non-oil revenue element or non-oil and oil revenue element, but he just generally said they met the target. When the Minister of Finance, who is now former Minister of Finance, Wale Edo, was at the screening, was at the National Assembly making a presentation, he said yes, $40 trillion was expected, but what was perhaps gotten was about $10 trillion. In the same breath, Zach Adodiji came and said, look, they met, however, they were using 2025 revenue to fund both 2025 budget and part of the capital component of 2024 budget, which caused that imbalance. So when you hear such things, what should we believe in terms of, are we really making money as a government, or we're being wasteful, or we're not being sincere, from what you know as a man who watches and follows the money?
I like your analysis because this is an important issue. So let's even dial back a bit. And when we look at federal government finances, the biggest problem we've had in previous years has been debt servicing. In the 2025 figures, it's around 16 trillion naira that has been used in servicing public debt. We don't even have the final figures yet. It might even be higher. So you have a revenue, and a lot of times when you look at the federal government budget implementation report, that's why sometimes you look at what the World Bank projects as government revenue, or IMF, or maybe budget. It differs from what the federal government states as revenue. But if you rinse that revenue properly, federal government is not making more than 20 to 22 trillion naira, and you have used around 16 trillion naira to service public debt. In that same way, you still have to pay salaries, you still have to pay overheads, you still have to pay statutory costs, you still have to even run what you call capital supplementation, or what you call service-wide votes. So personally, the federal government does not have enough resources. That's my own first thing, because there's an elephant in the room, which is the debt servicing cost. And in the previous government, they resorted to the CB and using the ways and means to cushion that effect. This government, because we understand the inflationary effect of that, this government has refused to do the same thing. So obviously, the other option you have, if you have some significant revenue shortfall, is to continuously borrow. Now, can we get more aggressive on the revenue side? Yes, we can, because obviously, if you look at what the federal government did with the executive order that compelled NNPC to now remit all their revenues, it was part of that pressure that the federal government needed much more money. The states are in a good place because obviously they have not run a huge outlay like the federal government. They are not in this massive debt servicing element like the federal government had put itself. And part of that problem was we were taking significant euro bonds. We borrowed money at 400 naira, 600 naira to $1. We're paying back at 1,200, 1,400 naira to $1. So, which is the danger with external debt? So if you're taking external debt today, considering the exchange risk that comes with it, it might look a bit discounted today. But if your currency does not appreciate over time, it might be a net negative. So invariably, when you look at what the government has done, federal government itself, it needs money to come from elsewhere. The other part is that it does not also have taken on capital expenditure discipline, because obviously whatever revenue the federal government has, when you put it through a liquid approach, it's not even enough to run its current expenditure, whatever revenue the federal government has. So what he ended up doing was to run multiple capital projects. So the little you can find in 2025, he uses to fund 2024. The little you can find in 2024, we're using it to run 2025. Even 2026 revenues now, we're using it to fund part of 2025 and 2024 capex. I read the president's speech when he said by June 2026, all of the 2025 capital expenditure will cease, and so that we can now move into 2026. So this whole thing has created this lopsided environment. What I'm saying is the federal government needs much more aggressive revenue by plugging up its loop. And there are a few things it can do differently. One is the cost of collection that some of the agencies under it are taking, like the FIRS, or what you call the NIRS now, and the MUPRC, or even the customs. There are some of these agencies that are collecting statutory percentages of cost of collection. Why? Why do you have to collect percentage? And some of these monies have gone so big because of the revenue, because of the collection has also become very bigger. So, if you look at the World Bank report that was withdrawn, around 4 trillion naira was taken in by some of these agencies, over 4 trillion naira. And this part of the worry that why can't these agencies just have a typical budget? Like, let them just have a budget, because it's even against the constitution. The constitution, they pay all the money into the federation account. So why can't they all have a budget? You approve the budget. If you want to give them some funding, to encourage them and to appreciate them for raising revenue, let that be a fair decision. Let that be a fair decision that goes through the National Assembly. So instead of you just telling them you retain 4%, you retain 7%, that has become very humongous resources. The other thing is also what they have done with NNPC. They could still go much more further in terms of taking much more efficiency from NNPC, because the federal government needs more money. But even if the federal government needs more money, this continuous borrowing, because just 2 months ago, the National Assembly approved $6 billion, $5 billion from the Abu Dhabi Bank, $1 billion naira for the UK export facility. Now we're doing another $516 million again. It seems we're shopping from everywhere to find external debt. And it's not just about now. It's a fact that we are taking debt that carries external exchange rate risk. And we're also taking that would also weaken public revenues in the future. It's something that to be worried about.
All right. You just highlighted some of those loans. Added to that list, if we could just take a walk back, December 2023, $7.8 billion approved by the Senate as part of 2022 to 2024 borrowing plan. In November 2024, $2.2 billion approved by Senate to address budget deficit in the 2024 fiscal year. And in July 2025, there was the $21.54 billion, along with 15 billion yen, $65 million grant, Senate approved for the borrowing plan between 2025 and 2026 fiscal year. And the approval from yesterday of 516 million. You talked earlier about, I wonder if you're worried about this, by the way, in terms of fiscal sustainability, because subsequent administrations will still borrow. But you talked earlier on about, the possibility of getting more aggressive with revenue generation. And we can also look at the fact that we've saved, according to the former finance minister, $20 billion from subsidy. So the question is it about, our priorities? And if we're getting taxes as well, the tax, law has been rejigged and there's been an expansion of the tax net. So if we're able to, mop up funds from these areas, is it a matter of priorities? Should we still be resorting to borrowing?
We talk about the subsidy removal, which is a very, very fair point. Most Nigerians are worried about the fact that subsidy was removed. But the federal government numbers maybe have improved. Revenue went all the way from 12 trillion in 2024 to around 20 trillion in 2025. So when you look at it, you're like, okay, yes, significant numbers have grown. In some sort of way, but at the end of the day, the problem with economics or with public finances, if you get benefit on this side, you get deficit on the other side. If you were paying, if you were servicing your external debt with at the rate of 400 naira or 600 naira to $1, you're not servicing that same debt at 1,400 naira to $1. So you can't win in every way. This is where those challenges we're making, and that's why I was making that point that the cost of debt servicing has risen so huge, so big. Unfortunately, the federal government has taken so magnificant bonds. I mean, the federal government's domestic debt has risen under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu from 48 trillion naira to 80 trillion naira. I mean, we have not even paid attention significantly to that. We're looking at the external debt and all of that. And even the external debt, we have not grown, maybe around, if I look at numbers, it's grown maybe around $8 to $9 billion. I mean, based on the figures that were released this September last year. Actually, by now, we should have received the first quarter of the debt numbers, but the DM was yet to release that. So by the time we see all of that, then we know where exactly we are as a country. I'm worried because if you look at the fact that who's benefited most from the subsidy removal, I would say the states. Who's benefited most from the tax act, I would say the states, because number one, the states have not run up debt as the federal government. Number two, you also look at the fact that the tax bill favored most of the states. They got more from the VAT. The corporate income tax that the federal government benefited more was reduced from 30 to 25%. So obviously, that's why when the tax act was being done, I'm like, why is the federal government trying to incinerate itself? But we will see how that goes. But when we see the full numbers for this year in terms of how has the taxes improved, maybe our concerns are valid or not. But the reality is that the federal government's finances are in a mess, and it requires a whole lot of fiscal discipline. But that's our bigger worry, that even if you don't have enough money, apply fiscal discipline, because the federal government of today needs around 30 trillion naira to service its recurrent expenditure. It does not have that money on the going basis, because if you service them with 16 trillion and you pay salaries of around 7 trillion, and you have to run what you call service wide of around 2 trillion, you're already on 25 trillion naira already. Then you have statutory transfers of around 4 billion. So you're already around 30 trillion naira. You have not even put a single capital expenditure on the ground. So the federal government needs to apply significant discipline. That's my own charge to, Mr. Taiwo Idili, and asking him to, take on this big point of fiscal discipline, which the federal government significantly needs.
And it's interesting you end your point on Mr. Taiwo Idili. So we've seen a change, Mr. Wale Edun out, removed, even though there's been a revision. He wasn't removed, he removed himself. But the statement was clear, and Mr. Taiwo Idili in. And, Mr. Wale Edun has spoken about foreign loans, saying, well, to the IMF, we don't need the package you're trying to give us. We don't need that right now. But it looks like with him out, we're going borrowing from international sources. So I wonder for you if you see this as strategic. When I say strategic, is this a strategic move that is positive for you or negative? I'm talking about the change in the ministers, understanding the position that Mr. Wale Edun held and how he's at least performed in office, and now what you expect Mr. Taiwo Idili to do based on his antecedents.
When I look at Mr. Wale Edun's tenure, I think one of our biggest problem was the fact that he could not have some control on the budget process and the fiscal efficiency that needed to come with it. When we talk about capital expenditure, every single thing just gets inside. Let's dial back a bit when we had Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala. She was deliberate and she was insistent. And the budget office sits with the Ministry of Finance. And the reason why she said these things was because she knew that if I do not control the budget process, as a finance person, I'm only financing waste, maybe things that are not properly administrative expenses, that these guys as capital projects. What we expected more from Mr. Edun was a little bit of control about what gets into the budget process, the capital budget prioritization, to say that the most important things. Because what you ended up saying was most of the projects that were being funded, and if you read the news stories, where what I would call politically aligned projects, maybe Coastal Road. You look at maybe the Badagry Road that has now been funded now. When you look at the Ministry of Health, saying that they only received 36 million, for their own capital projects for a 2025 budget, a 2025 budget that lasted over 11 months, nearly 11 months. You had agencies that said they didn't even receive a single dime as capital release in the 2025 budget. And just because the federal government do not have that bandwidth and some of the little money they have is being proposed into what I call this politically aligned project. So I mean, and these are the same issues that Mr. Oyedele would face. I mean, he would have to, he would have to bang his hand at the table for fiscal discipline, because at the end of the day, there is no way around it. The federal government needs aggressive revenues. As well, at the same time, it needs to be fiscally disciplined.
Mr. Anikbide, before I let you go, there's a question I asked. You answered it, but in passing, I don't know whether you really hit it on the head. And that has to do with, will I use the word accountability now or transparency? So I did refer to what the president said about meeting targets and what the honorable minister talked about at the hearing at the National Assembly and what Mr. Adedeji said. But I remember when we were opening the NRS new building, he said that, commending the president, that 5 years ago, the total revenue collection in the country was about 6.8 trillion naira. But as at the year 2020, that's 5 years ago, as at last year, 2025, it was about 28 trillion naira, almost about 70-something%, or no, way more than that. 28 trillion naira, more of an astronomical rise. So, when we hear these things, what do we really believe? What should we believe?
Yeah, I mean, and that's why you have to interrogate numbers well. If somebody says revenue has risen from 6.8 trillion naira, I mean, the person also has to be honest that debt servicing costs have also risen, from around 6 to 8 trillion naira to 15 or 16 trillion naira. That's to also agree that they have implemented a minimum wage that has nearly doubled the Nigerian revenue and Nigeria's personnel costs. They also have to be honest. The National Assembly's budget has doubled. NJC's budget has tripled. They now have BHCPF, they have NDDC, and different agencies also have to take percentages of that revenue as statutory. So if you brag about raising revenues on one side, you also have to be honest that your expenditure outlay on the other side has also risen. And that full-blown honesty, where everybody contextualize the money you think you have. Because even if you talk about that non-revenue target that the NRS is talking about, it's not just only for the federal government. It also includes the taxes that they get from the oil and gas environment. It also includes the non-revenue that is shared. The federal government only has around 48 to 52% of that money, not even up to that if you adjust around the 13% that has to go to the oil-producing country states. So at the end of the day, it sounds like big money,
right?
Some way. But if you dial back on the actual expense lines, we are not near the level where we should be at all.
Well, Mr. Olusegun, thank you for staying up for this all-important conversation. And we really hope that the handlers, when they have these decisions to make, do it with utmost responsibility and integrity. I'm talking about the executive legislature in this sense. Mr. Olusegun, thank you so much, co-founder and CEO of Budget.
Thank you so much, Kyrie and the team.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, well, we have some more for you. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk national security now. And, it appears a timeless conversation in the light of continuing attacks in many parts of Nigeria, be it the northeast, the north central, and sometimes even further down the south. And in recent times, the Senate, during plenary, that's 2 days ago, called for the urgent release of about 416 abductees in different parts of the country, Kwara, Kogi, and Borno State. And there were so many recommendations that came through from that resolution. And so let's look expansively at this topic now. And joining us now is security consultant Dr. Yahuza Getso, who joins us virtually for this conversation. Dr. Getso, good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning, Joyce. Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd like you to, first of all, speak to numbers and help us understand the scale of what we're dealing with as far as non-state actors is concerned. I wonder if it is as troubling for you as it looks. And I'll speak, first of all, I'll draw from the recent graduation of over 740 ex-terrorists who have been rehabilitated under the De-Radicalize program, and the recent trial and conviction of about 388 convicts in a trial of more than 500 terrorists by the federal government. That's just from about 2 weeks ago. And then we've also seen the neutralizing of terrorists like in Malam Faturi in Borno State weeks ago. About 80 terrorists were neutralized, 24 were neutralized 2 days ago in Borno. So how worrying is it for you that about the population of non-state actors that Nigeria is dealing with? What is the scale from where you stand, your assessment?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think either somebody is deceiving somebody somewhere else, or rather we are just discussing what we don't really have or what we cannot depend. If at all the total number of those have been rehabilitated is correct, at wherever in the northeastern part of the country, and the total number of those who were presented at the court during the magic jurisdiction. Even though I'm not a legal lawyer, but I wonder how comes these guys, one, if at all they have been in detention 13 years ago or thereby, looking at how they are, when you say you are taking them to prison, they are houseless, they are jobless, so they are looking for alternative where to sit and comport themselves more. So prison is not something new for them, for somebody who have been there in the last 13 years or thereby. That is one. Secondly, looking at the number from those that have been rehabilitated, using whatever policy or whatever strategy we may call it, the question is, if at all we really have those numbers put together, if we have this number, those from the 486, and then the other number from those who have been rehabilitated, I think we will have brought an end of Boko Haram or an end of ISWAP, because we should be able, when you multiply the total number by 11, and then the total number of population of Borno State, or the total number of population of the affected local government areas in Borno, Yobe, and even Bauchi and Bombay, when you put them together, you realize that why I said multiply them by 11 is, one, each and every one of them should be able to tell you who is providing them with social needs in terms of foods, in terms of shelter, and so on and so forth. Now, question number one, who is providing them with replenishing the ammunition? Who is replenishing the bullets? Who is replenishing the arms itself? And who is providing them with fuel for servicing their vehicles? And who is servicing the vehicles themselves? And who is controlling the maintenance? That is number 8. And then number 9, who have been providing them with the finances to procure those services? Those 8 services that I have mentioned. So if you can have that, and then the 9 services. Number 10, who have been providing them with information in terms of technology, in terms of drones, in terms of replenishing their walkie-talkie and the rest of it. Because I always say, whenever I go around those areas, I move around with 3 different walkie-talkie myself. as an ordinary civilian conducting investigation. So if we have answer to this cumulative, 11 times total number will give you what population? And if at all we have this population, then our intelligence will have been able to address all the challenges. That is why I'm really doubtful about the figure coming out from the federal government or from any agency who are talking about that we rehabilitated or we have been able to send so number to prosecute so number. And when you look at the guys in the court, they were so reluctant, they were so relaxed, they were so happy. Somebody who has been in detention for 13 years. Are we really not deceiving ourselves? Are we really speaking the truth? Are we really sincere and honest about what we really mean? Is this total number, is this population really realistic? How do we add this figure? And what is the essence of our intelligence? And what are the informations? I know there are multiple other components or variables or variants that can be used in extracting certain more information, not only the 11 questions. So if each one of them can provide 11 people that provide items, 11 items, which I know, I have more than 46 questions. Each and one.
Oh dear. Interesting analysis from Dr. Getso there. We could also ask, to add to that 11 to make 12, if there are moles, that supply information to the Nigerian army. But Dr. Getso, if you're back and you can hear me clearly, if we have cumulatively perhaps 1,200, either those who have been rehabilitated and those who are on trial, and out of the number of those who are on trial, we've seen some convictions. That's about 1,200. Why haven't we dealt significantly with the challenge of terrorism? Why are we still facing, pressure in the battle against insurgency and banditry on many fronts? What is the population of those that the Nigerian armed forces are fighting?
That is why I put together this analysis. And that is why I said I have more than 11 questions. I have about 46 questions. And I expect each and every one of the Boko Haram member or also a member that has been apprehended by the Nigerian security personnel, either military, either DSS, whatsoever, even the joint task force, including the civilian JTF or whatever, each and every one of them supposed to provide information about 46 individuals. When you put 46 total number, you multiply it by the total number of the population. I'm not even talking about only the total population of those criminals that we are fighting. No, I'm even concerned with the total population of the local government, affected local governments. Kwanduga, Bama, Bichika, Maiha, Madagali, Kukawa, and the rest of all the local governments, including that of Gubio, including that of Jakusko, Pataskum, the rest of within Borno, Yobe, and including even Gombe and Bauchi, if there are. Put together, what is the total population you will have? And then who have we really been fighting for all this period of time that we have been spending almost trillions of money that are unaccounted for, and losing senior military officers, men and officers in the military, in the DSS, in the police put together, having this population. Does that mean that our intelligence capacity, our intelligence quality, our intelligence financing, our intelligence gathering, and the informations we have been gathering over time have not really been speaking with this population that we are displaying, or with this population that we are presenting before the public? An ordinary person who doesn't even know and don't even understand what's really the intelligence or fighting the insurgency is all about, or generating information or investigation is all about, can easily assess, can easily understand, if at all we have this total population that we are talking that we have, what really is the wrong? And what is the total number of the population of the Nigerian Army, Nigerian Air Force, and all those that have been involved in fighting this insurgency? And what is even the total number of the population in the entire Borno State? I keep raising this question, and I think it's quite something is alarming. It's quite alarming, looking at the incessant killings and how they are really attacking, despite the fact that we normally receive information 2 days, or even sometimes more than that ahead of that on our military formations.
Yeah. If I may come in, just a simple question. When these bandits or terrorists brazenly, openly kill our officers, including top officers like a brigadier general, what message do you think they are trying to send?
I think they are sending 6 messages. 1, exposing the weakness. 2, describing their capacity and ability. And 3, exploring or kind of demonstrating the training and skills they have. And 4, undermining the national security atmosphere or the national security architecture. And number 5, also exposing kind of the relationship between our agencies. And then finally, the interwoven relationship between intelligence management, intelligence gathering, data utilization, and issues of accountability, and also is posing a more threat to the future, endangering, because it is breaking the morale of the personnel.
I'm happy the way you responded with bullet points. That leads me to the next question. When that happens in a sovereign state like Nigeria, how should the state respond to show that they are in charge and to make anyone who is thinking about it to think twice?
I think the state should have responded in 7 outline measures. Let me go simple outline. 1, the state should have responded massively in fast-tracking and reaching out to where these guys are, as Dr. Geso and many other community-driven or community-based investigators or intelligence researchers have been saying that these guys are known. So reach out to where they are and deal with them. That is 1. Secondly, conduct a massive retraining, and that is 2. Number 3, hold people accountable who are really, conduct a thorough investigation and understand who is undermining what. Number 4, the governor of Borno State, Professor Baba Umar Zulum, made mention when he commiserated with the army at one formation or the other, whether at the defense headquarters or wherever, I can't really remember, but it's available on the YouTube. Anybody can go through and see, where he was asking the local government chairman, we have the intelligence that these guys were going to attack this formation, where Brigadier O.O. Bremer was killed 3 days before the time. Then who is responsible for that intelligence and why it hasn't been used? That person should be brought to book and dealt with accordingly. Number 5, provide emergency human and surveillance equipment. When I say human, I know those in the intelligence knew what I'm talking about. They know how to provide human intelligence to utilize and get the actual data, and a quick data that could easily be utilized in responding in the immediate operation. Number 6, conduct a total overhaul and revisit the management of the fighting insurgency. Who is not doing what? And for what reason? Why? How? And deal with whosoever decisively and accordingly. And finally, number 7, to ensure that those areas like Dili and many other areas where defense headquarters have depended the airstrike on the market in Dili area and the rest of it, that area has been the corridor of criminality or corridor of Boko Haram ISWAP. If at all you know the corridor, what have you been doing that you cannot block that corridor? I know, yes, Gubio, Bani Sheikh, and many other local governments are serving as an intruder in terms of influx of arms and ammunition, as well as sophisticated issues related.
Indeed, so many recommendations that have come through, Dr. Getso, not just from you, but also from other experts, speaking of which is reminiscent of the resolve by the Minister of Defense upon appointment to probe the alleged sabotage in the Kebbi Coals abduction, but we're yet to hear anything significant that has come through from that promise made by the Minister of Defense. But we must anchor at this point and hope to tell, more heartwarming stories as far as security is concerned in the coming days. Dr. Yahuza Getso is a security consultant. Thank you for coming through on this conversation.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
And from here, there are more stories that you've been speaking to, particularly online, and it's time to explore them at this point on the program.
Oh yes, we're starting off with NELFund. NELFund is currently trending, and NELFund is a student loan scheme introduced by this government, the administration of President Bola Tinubu. And now, the controversy started when a user by the name Young Prof Zero on X put up a post saying, "I'm honored to let you know that I am the best graduating student of LAUTECH. Your loans," that's at NELFund, I should say, at NELFund. "Your loans made it possible," referring to NELFund. Of course, he reeled out his name, full name, Oladipo Caleb Olugbenga, BTech first class with a CGPA of 4.89. And this was, tagged to NELFund, and he attached his pictures, of course, from his graduation, where he took very nice pictures of himself. And you know what? Look at that, guys. This is a young man, best graduating student, LAUTECH. This is everybody's dream, right? Mm-hmm. To graduate as the best of with the first class, Oladipo Caleb Olugbenga. So what seemed like a harmless post then spiraled, and people started commenting. So what was meant to be a celebratory LinkedIn type of post became political, and then we had comments like this next one, which was by Adeomi, saying, "NELFund is not an achievement. It's a debt trap. You're celebrating taking a loan to pay fees that shouldn't have been this high in the first place." So this was from the angle of perhaps someone pained about the cost of fees and all of that. But naturally, the government also picked it up. The government of President Tinubu, and the spokesperson of the president, Bayo Onanuga, quoted that post and said, "You see, a testimony about President Tinubu's policy impact that should keep Peter Obi, Atiku, Kwankwaso quiet forever. The NELFund policy was intentional to help students like Caleb, who would have been denied the dream of tertiary education because of parental financial challenges." So this is what we have. This particular post by Caleb has gotten about 3 million or thereabout views, and naturally has caused lots of controversy and debate.
Well, it's not all gloom and doom. NELFund is, as Jeffrey would say, poster child of the administration. So it's an intervention that will come through inevitably for some who are going through a financial crunch, in their educational journey, and will help them along the way. But will Caleb and others get a reality check upon graduation and they are thrust into the labor market, and the jobs do not come through as soon as they wanted, so that the loans can be paid off? That's the question.
But people have argued that we should be giving grants instead of loans, but it's a good start to be able to allow him achieve his dream. So that must be commended, that he's able to achieve his dream because he's able to get some form of funding. I think it's not debatable. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Bless you.
But the other part should be repayment. There's a clear plan on how you can repay. And I think that if he's not making money after graduation, nobody's going to come after him.
Interesting.
There's a structure that you have to be earning, then they can start deducting. Whether that will happen eventually is a different kettle of fish. But I think when something is good, we should commend it. He's achieved his dream because he has access to some funds. Maybe tomorrow the government can say, "See all this money you guys were owing.
Forget about it."
It's very possible.
I look forward to that. So this has spiraled into lots of debate, but we wish students, Caleb, and all the very best. He has gotten lots of opportunities, by the way, online. People say, "You know what? Come work for me."
Right? And that's why sometimes it's good to sing your own
Toot your
praise.
horn.
Yeah.
But this next one.
I like this one,
Yeah,
Kadi.
Bukola.
This next one is from the Kenyan president, William Ruto, and he says, our education and English are good. We speak some of the best English in the world. If you listen to a Nigerian speak English, you'll need a translator, and that drew laughter from the audience. Let's listen to the Kenyan president.
Kenyans. Our education is good. Our English is good. Yes. We speak some of the best English in the world. Yeah, that is true. If you listen to a Nigerian speaking, you don't know what.
And so, listen to that. Yeah, go ahead, Jeffrey.
I feel that the East African English is one of the worst. That's my view. Ours and Ghana, a bit clearer. If you listen to a Ugandan, a Kenyan, I'm trying to go, let's not even go to South Africa. That East African bloc, even DR Congo, especially Uganda and all of those places. Now, I don't agree with President Ruto that their English, because he's talking about clarity. Clarity. See the way you're speaking, see the way I'm speaking. As educated, let the educated people speak as well. And then just taking a jab at Nigeria, but no, President Ruto, I disagree with you. Your English is not, the English of Kenyans and East Africans are not clear.
It's relative. There are more dynamics that impact on the level of clarity of our English. And it's one of the reasons I believe is that Nigeria is more heterogeneous than other African countries. And so there are more variations as far as dialectical inflections are concerned. And that's why some, ethnic groups are unable to articulate certain sounds. For instance, our brothers in the north, mix the P for the Phi, and all of that. And so perhaps, our brothers in West Africa and other parts of West Africa and East Africa have interacted with some of, our brothers here and say, okay, they don't have that much clarity as they do. And that's why if you go to Ghana, for instance, they articulate some of those sounds with precision, like the native English speakers in the United Kingdom, more than those of us
sometimes
in the West.
they actually overdo it.
So,
But
what is this contention with Nigeria? If it's Jollof, now it's English.
No, just like the dialectical inflection. So what is he picking? Is he picking? Is either speaking the Hausa or the Yoruba or the Igbo core speaker, like that has that mother tongue interference strongly as against their own Swahili mother tongue interference. We're not talking about those of us who don't have all of that. So I don't know. I still stand by West. I'm a patriotic Nigerian.
It's amazing. It's amazing the kind of conversation we're having right now. I mean, celebrating colonialism and the vestiges of it doesn't get better than this. I mean, what are we celebrating? What are we even arguing about? That you speak better English, not like you speak your own language, as it is, as it should be. So I think rather than chuckle and laugh about it, I think that is, a joke that is on us. As a people, that joke is literally on us.
I know that's another angle.
Yeah, it's on us. Yeah. We're saying we're speaking someone's language better than the other person. I don't know if we don't feel shame as I'm talking about the people there, the person who made the comment, and everybody who's arguing back and forth. And I know Nigerians have come at him saying, come on, the joke is on us as we're arguing. Why are we not talking about our own indigenous language? But hey, maybe this is a response to something President Tinubu said earlier about Nigeria doing better than other countries, and he mentioned Kenya. Maybe this is a jab, but I just want to let us know that the joke is on us.
We're not going to change our communication mode to Yoruba as a result anyway. So when we return here on Monday, it will still be English. But hey, we're better English speakers than the Kenyans. We no go agree. So we'll be back again on Monday. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey on Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour. Thank you for watching and bye-bye.
I'll speak my language. I'm sorry,